Jessica Augusto of Portugal, who's been showing very, very good form recently. She's been around for a long time, Jessica Augusto. She's never quite been at this very top level. Right alongside her, I can see Anna-Marie Sandel, who won this race many years ago, then been injured and had a family. Now suddenly coming back to the sport and running exceedingly well at the advanced age for a senior athlete. She's 31 now, but I mean, I think she was 17 or 18 when she first won this, and it's marvellous to see her on the way back in 4th place in the Finnish colours there, next to Jessica Augusto on the outside, and there's Hayley Yelling coming through. There's Louise Damon behind her, and the British tactics for today have seemingly been take it easy on the first lap and then get involved. But there is Jessica Augusto of Portugal.
We can see there after lap 1 the British team in 6th place. I'm sure that will change. Now, the most interesting athlete there for me is the Russian there. That is Galkina Samitova. You might remember the steeplechase in the Olympic Games. She stormed away to a gold medal and indeed broke the world record. We've never seen her on the country. There she is. It's a real surprise that she's here. But I've been told that she's now coached by the head of the distance coaching for the Russian team, and perhaps he's thinking this might not be a bad thing for her to do. She's kept away from the Russian press in the weeks leading up to this. They're not quite sure as to how she's going to run. She doesn't appear to have a lot of form on the country, but goodness me, if you run the world record under 9 minutes on in the steeplechase, then it just shows the calibre that she's got. But can she turn that into a winning performance on the country? Really interesting to see her run, Bren.
It really is. It's fantastic for the sport. I mean, you think about it, she was unbelievable in the Olympic Games. She led every step of the way. She won the gold medal. She broke the world record. She was the first woman under 9 minutes for the steeplechase. She was unchallenged and unthreatened for the whole event. And it was a phenomenal opening for the Russian performances in the Olympic Games. And I mean, she was, in her own way, she was one of the stars of the Olympic Games. Jessica Augusto, a more accomplished road runner. We saw her run a personal best in the Great South Run a few weeks ago, in 3rd place there. Mary Cullen just behind her. Anna-Marie Sandel just behind them. And Samitova, you know, we looked at some of the results and we hadn't seen her much before this year, but she did win the Russian cross-country championship. So if you win that, you're not a bad athlete. We knew she wasn't a bad athlete on the track. I'm not surprised to see that she's pretty accomplished on the country. Whether she's as good on this as she is on the track, time will tell. But this is an interesting opportunity for her to compete against the best. There's Hayley Yelling, there's Louise Damon, there's Hattie Dean of Great Britain coming through, and then a bunch of British athletes, Laura Kenny, Helen Clitheroe, and then moving through the field and gradually adding, just picking off athletes one after another. And we'll see the statistics come up at the end of the 2nd lap, and we'll see what position Britain are in.
Well, I have a feeling they'll continue to improve their position as this race goes on. There's a lot of experience in that team. The likes of Helen Clitheroe, a little further down at the moment, Hattie Dean in there as well. And they will just keep picking athletes off. There you can see Helen Clitheroe running with Laura Kenny. Of course, Laura Kenny, somebody Brendan and I've chatted, we'll be seeing the under-23 races a little later, and about athletes who make the choice whether to move straight up into the senior ranks. Steph Twell will have an interesting decision on whether to move through via the under-23s. But Laura Kenny, of course, won on the track a couple of years ago, under-23, 2007 under-23 championships. And, that gave her a real confidence boost, and I think sometimes certain athletes, the under-23s, is of real value. Well, an athlete Brendan mentioned there in the blue, really pleased to see Sandel back, the Finnish athlete who was such a prodigious talent as a youngster back in the mid-90s, won this event as a junior back in the mid-90s, and to be honest has been, as far as I was aware, not quite completely away from the sport. She said she's still been training. She's got 2 young children now, but this year has very much come back with a vengeance. As we see there, Bren, the British team now moved from 6th up into 3rd place and closing down. The Portuguese packing very well. Mary Cullen of Ireland now moving to the 4.
Mary Cullen running well recently, having the confidence to go alongside the very best in Europe. Jessica Augusto here on the near side. Hilda Kebet running for Netherlands. She's an athlete from Kenya who's transferred to the Netherlands. She's running very, very well. She's a very good athlete. Samitova on the inside and Anna-Marie Sandel at the back. And then a group, just a little gap And the British athletes, Hayley Yelling, who always gives of her very, very best. Hattie Dean moving through there. Louise Damon moving through. And the British team generally just adding to the position, just moving through gradually through the field. We're looking for the second group of British athletes now, and here they come. They're just in the middle there. There's Helen Clitheroe. There's Miles. I think the other one just went through. So I think the British athletes are there and thereabouts right now.
Yeah, Gemma Miles is the 6th of the counters. So, as you said, they're all packing pretty well. Always thought that it might struggle individually. Hayley Yelling is a redoubtable competitor, we all know that, but probably not running as well as she was 2-3 years ago when she won this title. It was Joe Pavey was in the race that day. But Hayley's just at the back of that group there, and we'll continue plugging away, and we'll be trying to pick athletes off ahead of her as they start to tire. Hattie Dean, they're running a very good race so far. Louise Damon right in there.
Well, Hattie Dean ran for Great Britain in the Olympic Games. She runs the steeplechase, the same event as Samitova. She's not in the same class as Samitova on the steeplechase, but clearly she's an athlete who she can. Sorry, she didn't run the Olympic Games. She was selected for the Olympic Game, but she missed it through a stress fracture. But she's an athlete who's not in the same class as Samitova. However, here she is, buoyed up by the British performance in the earlier races, and at the end of the day, she's now competitive with some of the best athletes in the world. Louise Damon there is at the back of the group, and it was great to see Samitova in this event, but I don't think the 3,000 metre steeplechase form, certainly the form from Beijing, hasn't quite translated to the track, as Mary Cullen leads from Jessica Augusto, and then Hilda Cabet, who's going to be a real danger in this event. Hilda Cabet was 5th in the World Cross Country Championships, which is a class apart from this event. As we look further down the field, I'm just looking again for Samitova, and she's quickly dropped off that group, but she's been competitive for the first part, and it's a real boost for this event to have the best athletes from Europe, and there aren't many distance runners from Europe who win gold medals in the Olympic Games, and she's one of them. And at the end of the day, it was great of her to come here and compete, as Mary Cullen of Ireland stretches them along, keeps it going and moves the pace nicely.
Well, that's how they stood after the 2 short laps and 4 larger laps of 1,500 metres. But Galkina now drifting away from that leading group rather quickly, to be honest. But Mary Cullen, good to see her at the front. We've had a lot of athletes here now, British and Irish athletes who spend or are based in the US. Mary Cullen was indeed the US collegiate champion a couple of years ago when she was representing Providence College. And still races out there pretty regularly. In fact, all of her performances this year have been, or good performances have been in the States, but coming to this event in good shape and confident as well. They'll be looking for good performances in the men's race. They've got a very strong team in the men's race, incidentally, and chances individually as well. But of course, Mo Farah heading up the British Challenge in that one. But Mary Cullen performing really well up to this point. But I think Hattie Dean's having an excellent race. And Louise Damon working hard to try and stay with her. So they've just got to keep moving through there. It's the team race, it's the real target. A long way to go in this race. Hattie Dean right on the shoulder of Anne-Marie Sandel, or Sandel Hivarinen as she's known as now. But they have a gap of about 15-20 metres to the leaders, and Hilda Cabet for the first time starts to dictate things with Mary Cullen.
Well, Mary Cullen, based at Providence College in Rhode Island in the States. It's been a great source of inspiration for Irish athletics. There's Louise Damon and Hattie Dean leading the British contingent, but Hilda Cabet, who is a class athlete, as I said earlier, she was 5th in the World Cross Country Championships, which gives you the pedigree here. Mary Cullen in 2nd place, Jessica Augusto 3rd, Montero 4. There's Anne-Marie Sandel, and there is Hattie Dean, and then Louise Damon running very well there, coming through nicely. And we're looking now for the next counter, and that's Hayley Yelling, not quite in the form when she won this race in 2004, but this is a race which has been won by her and by Paula Radcliffe on a couple of occasions. So it's been a great race for British athletes in the past, but this is the Kenyan athlete Hilda Cabet, who now represents the Netherlands. There's Jessica Augusto, Mary Cullen in 3rd place. So the race is getting moving, getting competitive, but this is the class athlete on the country of this event. The track athlete, Galkina Sametova from Russia, is the class if they were running on a track, but it's funny how the surfaces make a difference to some athletes and not to others.
Hilda Kibet, of course, followed in the footsteps of Lorna Kiplagat, Kenyan who became a Dutch athlete, and Lorna Kiplagat still running very, very well indeed on the world cross-country champion, but not running in these European Championships, concentrating on her road racing career. Herzog also running well here. She was tipped to do well. Is starting to move through a little bit. Some of those changes, some of the positions change a little further down as athletes who start a little bit quickly. And I have to say, unfortunately, Hattie Dean might be one of those. Hattie just starting to drift back a little bit at the minute as these gaps get bigger, particularly on the first 10 places or so. But Hilda Kibet just negotiating herself around. I think that's the most difficult turn there. Picking her way through the mud. This course in Brussels, a very famous course. Didn't Benita Johnson win the World Cross here, Bren? Wasn't that the year that Benita Johnson
won? I think
it
was actually, yeah, 2004 was when Benita won it. Benita struggling back to get her best form as we look at the two British athletes working together there, Hattie Dean and Louise Damon. And if you look now, just coming on there's Sametova, the Olympic 3,000 metres steeplechase champion, and being closed down by this group led by Hayley Yelling, who's working extremely hard here. And there we're looking at Helen Clitheroe, another steeplechase athlete, Laura Kenny, and I think that's the British scorers there, and pretty safely. But now the race is going to get competitive. Jessica Augusto, we saw her in the Great North Run earlier this year, finishing in 9th place, and then we saw her improve drastically on that in the Great South Run. But here she is now challenging Hilda Kibet, who only came available to run for Holland in February this year, but now representing that country where she spends her time and lives, goes back to Kenya with Lorna Kiplagat, her cousin, and trains. Now, is that a winning lead? The other Portuguese athlete has now overtaken Mary Cullen. That's Inês Monteiro. And a smooth looking performance by the athlete. She represented Holland in the Olympic Games. She finished 15th in the 10,000 metres, and that was a classic race, that women's 10,000 metres run by Tiranish Dibaba, who went on then to win the 5,000 metres as well, and that was a fantastic performance. But Britain's team working well, Portugal looking good in first place. It'll be difficult to overturn that, but there's Hilda Kibet, now has made a move, she's got a lead, and there's Jessica Augusto and Monteiro and Mary Cullen, who's come over from Providence College to run here today. Morato of Spain, and then Louise Damon. That's a good performance by Louise Damon, as Anna-Marie Sandel just behind her, and then Hattie Dean comes through. So positions are established, and there's the class athlete of this field. Great to see her running on the country, Galkina Sametova. She's not enjoying it as much as she did enjoy the steeplechase in Beijing.
No, to say the least. Kibet striding away, but I'm just watching behind her, Augusto and Monteiro still moving well. I'm not sure the gap's getting much bigger, and she's working hard. There's still a fair way to go here. And Augusto, well, if she can keep that gap. Look at Mary Collins fighting back there with Monteiro. So when you get a couple of athletes working well together, they've gone through a bit of a patch, you can start to close down the gaps. The camera is foreshortening that, but it's only 3-4 seconds really between Kibet there. And Augusto's certainly been closed down a little bit by Cullen and Monteiro, but these gaps, while large, are not insurmountable. But Kibet has experience. You wouldn't expect an athlete of her calibre really to have got this wrong in terms of pace. She knows and competes indeed against the likes of Augusto quite regularly. Augusto, a lot of experience on the track and on the country. has performed really well, but Mary Cullen having a very, very good race for Ireland. Got herself in a medal position at the minute. Now a little bit further down, this is where it's getting interesting for Britain, because as you see those individual positions go through, the Portuguese have got 2 in the top 4 there, and then I can see another one of their athletes just coming through. But we're packing quite well, and although Hattie Dean's gone through a little bit of a difficult spell, she's trying to hang on to Louise Damon. Louise having a good race. She was behind Hayley Yelling in the trial, was won by Steph Twell. Hayley Yelling was second and Louise Damon was third. So you would have thought that Hayley might have been a little closer to Louise Damon and Hattie Dean, but Hayley will continue to plug away, and you have a feeling that she might just be able, there's the group that Hayley Yelling is in, I think, with Samitova, so might well get themselves a little bit closer to the athletes ahead of them. But a lot is going to depend, Brent, in terms of that team race on the likes of the next counter would be Laura Kenny or Helen Clitheroe, and one of those two that are running together probably needs to pick up a few places if they're good to get close to the Portuguese, but they're 19 points ahead, so a lot needs to change. Mary
Cullen coming through the shot with Monteiro of Portugal right behind her. The Portuguese team being ably led by Jessica Augusto, and has Hilda Kebet, the Kenyan athlete representing Holland now, just exactly the same as her cousin Lorna Kiplagat did. She moved across to Holland, she got married in Holland, then she represented Holland in this event. She won it a few years ago, and now can it be the same performance, can it be the same style by Hilda Kebet? We saw her finishing 5th in the World Cross Country up in Edinburgh, and we see her here now pretty much at ease on this course. Now let's look at the gap. Jessica Augusto hasn't given up on this one, and that's not an insurmountable lead. Monteiro moving through 3rd place, just ahead of Mary Cullen, and I think that's going to be a rare battle. I think Mary Cullen really needs to just hold it there, just keep that position. And then Morato from Spain, the Spanish steeplechase champion, and there we look down the group, and there's Louise Damon and Hattie Dean running exceptionally well. Herzog also representing Holland, and then the other Rosa of Portugal. There's Anna-Marie Sandel, and then it was look down the field. There you can see Hayley Yelling working very, very hard, not running as well as she was a few years ago, but still giving her everything for the British team.
And there's Laura Kenny, Brent, because that's what I was saying. That's good that she's made a bit of a break away from Helen Clitheroe. And there's, I think Diaz might well be the last counter for the Portuguese. They're certainly doing well at the minute, because they're actually moving through the field, to be honest, because Diaz is making good progress, but still in with an opportunity. Kebet leading it, excuse me, and coming around this time with a lap to go, still looking pretty strong.
8,000 meters this event, about 24 minutes, 25 minutes of running on this course. And Hilda Kebet, 5 seconds there, clear at the beginning of the last lap, ahead of Jessica Augusto, and Cullen and Monteiro running together, but Monteiro just beginning to pull away from Mary Cullen now, so the Irish medal hope is just fading away a little. Jessica Augusto has applied herself very well over the years and now is getting some reward for it. Monteiro, a teammate, and Portugal over the years have been very, very good at cross country. They've had some good distance runners, but they've all been born and brought up in the knowledge of cross country running as an essential part of their distance running. Herzog coming through, and then Hattie Dean and Rosa of Portugal, and Damon of Great Britain, and then Anna-Marie Sandel, who won this event in 1995, disappeared from the sport since, and is now back in contention.
Excuse you. Well, Hayley Yelling just a little bit disappointed in her run, Bren, because she was second in the trial at the Steph 12 just a couple of weeks ago, and she's being run down by Laura Kenny now, and just thought that Hayley might have pushed on a little bit, picked up a few places. I really don't think they're going to challenge the Portuguese now as they head towards the last lap. Portuguese looking very strong indeed, and all of their counters are moving through the field rather than going back down the field. So second might well be the best that we can do at this particular point, but really did think that Hayley Yelling might have been a little bit further up. There was a large gaps, and you can see there the two athletes ahead of her, Hattie Dean and Louise Damon. You wouldn't normally expect those two to be ahead of Hayley Yelling.
No, you'd expect Hayley to do and raise her performance at an event that she's won before. Unfortunately, she looks to me as though around those corners where you have to twist and turn, her motion seems to be across the course rather than up and down the course, and it looks as though she's not as comfortable on this course as I've seen her in previous times. As we look at Mary Cullen just losing the race for the bronze medal, well, it's Morato of Spain, Rosa Maria Morato of Spain comes through, and then Herzog representing the Netherlands. And here's the British contingent led by Hattie Dean as we look at Anna-Marie Sandel. It's really good to see her back running, because she was a long time away from the sport. She was always injured. She could never get a clear run. And Hilde Kebet, who's had a really good year. And at this time of the year, when it comes to December, the athletes who've been featuring on the track over the summer have just got their winter's training going and they're starting to run well. By Christmas time, most distance runners should be coming into some kind of form if they're going to run well in the next year. So Hilde Kebet is an athlete here who's coming into form clearly now and ready for 2009, the World Championships in 2009. Jessica Augusto exactly the same. Disappointed with her performance at the Olympic Games, and now getting ready for a successful attack for a medal here as her teammate Montero comes through into second place. These two are going to be absolutely delighted to lead the Portuguese team home, which is clearly going to be into the gold medal position.
A lot of experience in that Portuguese team. Augusto competing in her 9th European Cross Championships, and Montero indeed in her 11th. And they've always competed very well indeed. Montero, this will probably be her best performance, but Augusto just having to watch Kebet continue to move away. And the team race, as Brendan was saying, that really can't see anything changing now at this point, but Hattie Dean is rallying, and on an individual basis looks as though she might get the best or become the best of the British athletes there. Mary Cullen just starting to struggle a little bit now, and you'll see behind her in a second, I think it'll be Herzog who comes round the corner next. Well, actually it's quite a big gap, isn't it? It's the Spaniard Morato, who Spaniards really were hoping that they could get some success here after last year, of course. Marta Dominguez, who won on home soil, wasn't it? She put in a superb performance. But there indeed, Rosa just going through the picture. There's Hattie Dean pulling away now from Louise Damon. These two have run very well. Hattie Dean going pretty well indeed. She's not always a great exponent on the country, and Laura Kenny's now gone past Hayley Yelling as well. Hayley not having a good day at the office today. Very surprising to see. I think I said right at the very beginning, I think it's for the last 6 or 7 years Hayley Yelling has not been outside the top 10, so it just shows you what sort of day she's having. Not a good performance from Hayley for whatever reason, but nothing you can say about Hilde Kebet, nothing negative. She's looked pretty confident and very much in charge for a long way now. Has another little look behind. No real danger coming from Augusto. That gap has not really changed too much, but the Portuguese athletes never really looked like closing down any of this lead. Kebet just needs to hold it together. Augusto always there or thereabouts. Could be heading for the silver medal. Her teammate Montero looks as though she's increased her cadence a little bit in 3rd place. Does she have enough time to catch her teammate? I doubt it. Foreshortening on the camera there. It's got to be, what, at least 6 or 7 seconds, that gap. And Augusto can sprint at the end as well. But Montero's trying hard.
And Mary Cullen's run a really good race in 4th place there. Challenging for medals at all points. Getting roared on by the enthusiastic Irish supporters there. But it's not going to be in other than 4th place. And there, Hilde Kebet rounding off a terrific year for her. She finished 5th in the World Cross Country, representing the Netherlands in Edinburgh earlier this year. She then won the Olympic Games and finished 15th in the 10,000 metres, which was a classic 10,000 metres, a brilliant 10,000 metres, and that was a really good performance on her part. And now having the chance to wave at the crowd as she enjoys her first major title, a European cross-country title for the athlete representing the Netherlands, coming home strongly to win this.
Hilde Kebet, a little bit of a smile perhaps breaking across her face there. It's been a really good, solid performance. She was one of the favourites beforehand, and just I thought there was a little stumble there, just waiting for the Dutch flag to be thrown out. Caught it well, had time to drape it over her shoulders as she crosses the line, winning from Augusto of Portugal, who takes the second place, the silver medal, and indeed the bronze going to her teammate Monteiro, who will hold off the challenge of Mary Cullen of Ireland, who's put in a really good performance. And there was a good battle going on behind these four for the lower places. Hattie Dean was trying to get through, but she's going to finish in the top 10. It'll be Morato next across the line in 5th place, ahead of Herzog. 2 Dutch athletes in the first 6 there. And then I think that's going to be one of the other Portuguese athletes. They will definitely win. It could be Rosa. They will definitely win the team race. And then Hattie Dean and Louise Damon. 2 good performances from those 2. And here's a battle further down. We saw Samitova there. She is the world record holder, sprinting in to come in just ahead of Laura Kenny, who will end up as Britain's 3rd counter, and Haley Yelling just coming through as the 4th counter.
Well, if you look at that, a fine performance by Hilde Kebet, and the 2 Portuguese athletes in 2nd and 3rd place really celebrating that performance, and a good solid overall performance by the British team.